On the night of February 9, 2004, a car crashed on a quiet rural road in Haverhill, New Hampshire. It wasn't a major crash. No other vehicles were involved, just a single car, sitting sideways in the snow along a dark curve of Route 112. Inside the car was a 21-year-old college student named Maura Murray. A passing bus driver stopped and spoke with her. She appeared shaken, but not injured. He asked if she needed help. She told him she had already called roadside assistance, but there was a problem. There was no cell phone signal on that road. The bus driver returned home and called the police. And when officers arrived at the crash scene just 7 minutes later, Maura Murray was gone. No footprints leading deep into the woods, no signs of a struggle, no clear indication of where she went, just a damaged car sitting in the snow. A few scattered belongings, and a mystery that, more than 20 years later, remains unsolved. How does someone disappear in 7 minutes on a quiet road in the middle of winter? To understand that question, we have to go back to the days leading up to that night, because the hours before Maura Murray vanished were filled with strange decisions, unanswered questions, and clues that investigators still struggle to explain. Maura Murray was a 21-year-old nursing student at the University of Massachusetts Amherst. Friends described her as intelligent, athletic, and determined. She had been a competitive runner in high school, someone who pushed herself hard, someone who rarely gave up. Her family was close. Her father often spoke proudly about her achievements. From the outside, her life looked normal. But in the days before she disappeared, things may not have been as stable as they seemed. There had been stress, academic pressure, and a few unusual events that, at the time, didn't seem especially important. But after Maura vanished, those details suddenly became critical pieces of a much larger puzzle. The night before she disappeared, Maura was working a shift at her campus job. At one point during the evening, something happened that worried her supervisor. Maura became extremely emotional. She appeared so upset that her supervisor asked what was wrong, but Maura gave only a vague answer. She reportedly said something about her sister, and then stopped explaining. No clear details and no obvious reason, just distress. The following day, something even stranger happened. Maura sent an email to several of her professors. In the message, she explained that she would be away from school for about a week because of a family emergency. But when investigators later spoke with her family, they discovered something unusual. There had been no emergency. Around that same time, security cameras recorded Maura at a nearby ATM. She withdrew nearly all the money from her account, about $280 in cash. Shortly afterwards, she stopped at a liquor store. Surveillance footage showed her purchasing several bottles of alcohol, wine, vodka, and wine coolers. Not long after leaving the store, Maura packed her car and left campus without telling anyone exactly where she was going. Investigators later pieced together her likely route using receipts, phone records, and highway cameras. It appeared she was heading north, toward the White Mountains region of New Hampshire, a place she had visited before with her family, a place known for small mountain towns, winding highways, and dense forests stretching for miles. The White Mountains are beautiful during the day, but at night in winter, they can feel incredibly isolated. Roads weave through long stretches of wilderness where houses are few and far between. Some areas have almost no streetlights. On a February evening, darkness falls early. Temperatures drop quickly after sunset, and once you leave the larger towns, traffic becomes sparse. Route 112, the road where Maura would eventually crash, runs through a particularly remote stretch of the region. Locals sometimes refer to this part of the road as the Wild Ammonoosuc area. The highway follows the curves of a river and cuts through thick forest. Sharp turns appear suddenly, and in winter, patches of ice can form along the pavement. For drivers unfamiliar with the road, navigating those curves at night can be difficult, especially if the temperature has dropped below freezing. Investigators later confirmed that the weather that night had been cold. The ground was covered in snow, and although the road itself had been plowed, icy conditions were still possible in shaded areas. As the evening continued, Maura drove deeper into this landscape, past small houses, past dark tree lines, further away from the busy highways she had started on earlier in the day. And then, just after 7:20 p.m., something happened on a bend in the road. Around 7:27 p.m., a local resident heard the sound of a car accident outside his home. When neighbors looked toward the road, they saw a vehicle sitting at an angle in the snow. It appeared the car had spun out on the curve. The vehicle Maura had been driving was a Saturn sedan. When investigators later examined it, they found the front end had struck a snowbank. The impact had cracked the windshield. The hood showed signs of damage, but the collision itself did not appear catastrophic. The car was still largely intact. Its interior was not crushed. The driver's door was accessible. The vehicle had come to rest facing the opposite direction of travel, angled partially off the road. Some witnesses later reported seeing the car's hazard lights flashing. Others recalled noticing movement near the driver's side shortly after the crash, but no one reported seeing another vehicle involved. Moments after the accident, a nearby school bus driver approached the scene. His name was Butch Atwood. He had just finished his evening bus route and was heading home when he saw the damaged vehicle. Atwood lived only a short distance away from the curve where the crash occurred. When he saw the car, he stopped his bus and stepped outside. Inside the vehicle, he saw a young woman, cold, shaken, but apparently conscious and able to speak. Atwood asked if she needed assistance. According to his later statements, the woman, believed to be Maura, declined his offer. She told him she had already called roadside assistance. Atwood found that unusual. He knew from experience that cell service in the area was extremely unreliable. Still, he didn't press the issue. Instead, he suggested he would call the police for her. His house was only about 100 yards down the road. From there, he could still see the crash site from his window. Atwood returned home and went inside. He contacted authorities and reported the accident. The call itself lasted only a short time. Meanwhile, outside, the crashed Saturn remained on the dark roadside. Snow surrounded the vehicle. The forest stood quiet beyond the trees, and somewhere within those next few minutes, something happened. When the first police officer arrived at the scene, the car was still there, but Maura Murray was gone. Her belongings remained inside the vehicle. The alcohol she had purchased earlier had spilled in the car. A rag was found stuffed into the tailpipe, something her father later said she had been told to do to reduce smoke from the car. But the driver had vanished. Investigators quickly began trying to reconstruct the timeline, but the more closely they looked at those 7 minutes, the more puzzling they became. According to dispatch records, the officer arrived only a short time after Atwood placed the call. That meant Maura had disappeared in a very narrow window of time. Too short, some investigators believed, for someone to run deep into the forest. And yet, no one reported seeing her walking along the road. Fresh snow covered the surrounding ground. If someone had moved far into the woods, footprints might have been visible. But searchers found very little evidence of a clear path leading away from the crash site. Tracking dogs were later brought to the scene. The dogs picked up Maura's scent near the driver's side of the car. They followed it along the road for a short distance, about 100 feet, and then the scent suddenly stopped, right in the middle of the roadway. To investigators, that detail raised an unsettling possibility. Because scent trails usually fade gradually, they do not simply end, unless something interrupts them, like someone stepping into another vehicle. Within hours of the disappearance, police began organizing search efforts. The surrounding forest was vast. Miles of dense trees and uneven terrain stretched beyond the roadside. Search teams walked through deep snow. Volunteers joined the effort. Helicopters flew overhead, scanning the ground below. Thermal imaging equipment was used in an attempt to detect signs of a person in the cold landscape. But searching a winter forest is incredibly difficult. Snow hides small objects. Footprints can become distorted. And dense tree cover can block visibility from the air. Days passed, then weeks. Still, no trace of Maura Murray was found. Over time, investigators began examining possible explanations for what might have happened that night. One possibility is that Maura chose to disappear voluntarily. Supporters of this theory point to the unusual behavior before she left campus. The email about a family emergency, the withdrawal of money, the sudden trip north. Some have suggested she may have wanted to escape the pressures in her life. But investigators also note that there has been no confirmed contact, financial activity, or verified sighting of Maura since 2004, which makes a long-term voluntary disappearance difficult to explain. Another theory suggests Maura left the crash scene and walked into the forest. If she believed police were on the way and feared getting into trouble after the crash, she may have tried to avoid them by leaving the road. But the temperatures that night were extremely cold, and the wilderness surrounding Route 112 is dense and disorienting, especially after dark. Yet, despite extensive searches over the years, no remains or belongings have been discovered in the area. A third theory suggests someone may have stopped and offered Maura a ride. Perhaps a passing driver saw the crash and pulled over to help. If Maura entered another vehicle voluntarily, it would explain why the scent trail ended in the road. But that theory raises another question. Who was the driver? Despite years of investigation and media coverage, no confirmed witness has ever reported picking her up. Finally, some investigators believe the possibility of an abduction cannot be ruled out. Route 112 is quiet at night, but vehicles do occasionally pass through. If someone with harmful intentions encountered Maura during those few minutes, the opportunity would have been brief, but possible. Still, no physical evidence has ever confirmed that a crime occurred. More than 20 years have passed since that night. The road where Maura Murray's car crashed still winds through the forests of New Hampshire. Drivers pass it every day, often unaware that one of the most puzzling disappearances in modern history began on that quiet curve. The timeline remains the same. A crash, a witness, a call to police, 7 minutes, and then nothing, no confirmed sightings, no clear explanation, just a mystery frozen in time. Somewhere within those 7 minutes lies the answer. Did Maura Murray walk into the darkness of the forest? Did someone stop and offer help? Or did something happen on that silent winter road that no one has ever discovered? Until that question is answered, the disappearance of Maura Murray remains exactly what it has been since 2004. A mystery that began with a small crash and ended with someone vanishing into the night.